Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us here on our YouTube channel for episode number 997. Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of times when we talk about agriculture and working in agriculture, we're talking about being with the livestock, being in the fields, driving the tractors, producing the crop, producing the meat, producing the milk, whatever that may be. But what about the other end of things? On today's episode, we're going to be speaking with a former FFA student and current jackrabbit at South Dakota State University. Whitney Ten Napel is coming on. Sorry, Whitney, I'm struggling to pronounce that. Whitney Ten Napel is coming on the show, and she's going to be talking to us all about why she chose dairy manufacturing as her college major. In addition to that, she'll be talking about her supervised agricultural experience where she ran a open sheep show in conjunction with her county's county fair sheep show. Really interesting story, and we're going to get that started for you right now. Whitney, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. It is great to meet you. And I am really looking forward to finding out about your major in college. It's very interesting, and we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about your supervised agricultural experience and all of that type of stuff. But before we get there, I would love to just ask you some questions just about you to get to know you a little bit. Would that be okay?
Sounds great.
Okay. Where are you sitting right now? You've got a great background, obviously talking all about your project with sheep, Plymouth County Open Sheep Show, and everything there. So where is this? Are you at home?
I'm actually at school in Brookings, South Dakota, in my apartment bedroom.
Oh, okay. So that is your apartment in South Dakota, and you're currently a junior at South Dakota State. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, tell me about this background. What am I looking at here?
Actually, I didn't grow up with much of a ag background per se. My mom works in healthcare, and my dad drove trucks, so we had a little bit of background, but we didn't raise much livestock. It just wasn't what we didn't do. But as I grew up and got involved in 4-H and later into FFA, I knew that ag was something that I was passionate about. And we had a family friend that is actually in the dairy manufacturing industry, where I kind of learned a little bit about dairy manufacturing, who raised some show sheep. And that's where I kind of started my sheep background and my ag background when I was second or third grade, with one little sheep that I showed, and it just blossomed from there. And I knew that livestock and agriculture was something that I really wanted to do. So I continued to show sheep on local, state, national levels all through my high school career.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved into high school and got involved in FFA. And when I was in FFA, I did my supervised agriculture experience project, and I started my own sheep flock for a while that I have since dispersed of. Just with college, it's hard to keep that and stay in school and everything. But I also did, when I started showing these sheep, I was introduced to the Plymouth County Open Sheep Show, and the group of guys that had ran it, they just didn't have any interest in it anymore, and they gave it up. But that's where I got my start. And so as part of agriculture, I knew our county fair needed something to get younger kids like involved and back into the industry. And that was my focus. My dad actually started the show when I think it was in 8th grade was the first year we as a family put the show back on. And then as the years went on and I got into high school, I was like, that was something I wanted to do. And so with my parents' help, I took the show over. I did all the fundraising, all the sponsorship, everything. And that was my project. That was my way to give back to the livestock community and show these younger kids that they can still be a part of the industry. And then I went on to college, and I've given to now my FFA chapter. They've been doing the show, and I come back and help every year with it. But that's where my ag background came from, and it's just continued to grow since I went to college.
Wow. Okay, so that sign behind you, that is I guess a reminder of what it is you and your family did and what's still going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, very cool.
That was the first banner that came out of that show.
Okay. Now, you said that you didn't grow up really with that agricultural background. Your parents weren't necessarily involved in that. So what got you? What bridged that gap? What brought you in?
Um, my dad, he was big and he drove his truck and he had some of that ag background and he would share his knowledge with me. But my real push to the sheep industry was actually a guy by the name of Greg Junk, who was from my hometown. And he was the one that showed me that you can have a career and you can work every day and still be a part of ag and still find a hobby in agriculture. And that's kind of where I started my ag career, I guess, was by seeing what he did every day. He has a dairy manufacturing job and he works at Wells Blue Boney back home, but he still raises sheep. And so I was like, that's something that I could tie back, that it was feasible. It was something I could do.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Oh man, Blue Bunny, that's delicious ice cream.
It is. It's my favorite.
I've been to Iowa, and when we were there, we had to have Blue Bunny ice cream. And I guess I should explain, you're coming to us from South Dakota State University, but you actually went to high school in Iowa at Lamar's Community High School, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually grew up in Lamar's and have since come to South Dakota for a little bit.
Okay. What took you to South Dakota State versus staying in Iowa for college?
My big thing was when I came up, I actually came as a junior to do the college visit. And I came to Brookings and it just, everybody's like, when you find a home, it feels like home. And that's really what it felt like home. And when I was visiting, the people, everybody you talk to, they would stop and answer your questions. I went to other schools and I just didn't feel right. And the professors that I talked to, even in high school, that still, when I was in high school, they would contact me and be like, oh, we've got this program that you can think about. And just, it's somewhere that I didn't know a lot of people. Back home, there's people that came up here, but not a lot of people went. And we pushed Iowa State. That was the big school.
Sure.
And I had been to Iowa State. And to me, it was so big. And I just felt like another number. Like here in Brookings, the professors know you by name. And I feel like I'm not just a number here.
Well, that's interesting. So there's kind of a personal touch. And for you, I mean, you're from Iowa, but really to go to Brookings is not that far from home, just looking at where Lamar sits on the map, right?
Yeah, it's about 2 hours home.
Okay. Yeah, so that's not too bad. Now, I was just looking at the map. I've got to ask you, have you ever gone up to the Tulip Festival in Orange City?
Oh, yes. We go quite a bit.
Okay, I have been there. I have actually been to Orange City, been to the Tulip Festival. My wife and my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law are all Dutch, and so they got the dresses on and the wooden shoes, and they went out and they cleaned the streets, and they did all of that. It was an interesting thing to go to. I'd never been to anything like that.
Yeah, it's a fun time that happens every May. So it's fun to see the heritage come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, very cool. So we know how you got into ag, and was it just a natural progression for you to go from showing sheep and being involved in this to just move right into the FFA?
It kind of was. It was something my mom wasn't in. She was in 4-H, but she didn't really have it. She kind of pushed me to it, but my dad was in FFA and active when he was in high school. So I kind of knew a little bit about it. And it was something that I was like, when you start to pick your classes for high school, it sounded interesting. It sounded fun. I was like, I could do a class and see how I like it. And from my freshman year of high school to my senior year, every class was just a building block. And I was like, I just really saw myself excelling as a person and being in ag. And that's where I really found myself and found what I was passionate in.
Very good. Well, let's do this. I always love to take a break in the show and acknowledge our FFA advisors. How many advisors did you have over the years?
Through high school, I had one advisor, and he has since retired. So I now actually have a new advisor. So
Okay.
Technically 2 advisors.
All right. Who are those folks?
My high school advisor was Brett Akin, and my current advisor is Danielle James.
All right. Thank you so much for acknowledging them. And Whitney, we're going to take a quick break to acknowledge our sponsor, Lacrosse Boots, okay?
All right.
All right, Whitney. Well, now that we're back, we were talking off the air. You own some lacrosse boots yourself and said you and your family really like them.
Yeah, my dad uses them pretty much every day hauling hogs. So that's kind of where we use them, is in the truck.
Yeah, awesome. And does he use, like, on my farm, I use the Alpha Range boots, which are a neoprene base chore boot. Is that what you guys use, or just straight rubber boot?
No, we use the neoprene ones.
All right, so I want to ask you this question. I'm going to totally put you on the spot here. But on my farm, when I first got neoprene-based rubber boots, I went through a couple different brands. Well, I'm not going to mention any brands, but after one season, they broke down on me. I got leaks, I got rips in the neoprene and stuff like that. And then I finally bought the Alpha Range by Lacrosse, and I'm still on my very first pair. I'm on my 3rd year in this pair without them breaking down or doing anything like that. And that's why I'm so enthused about having them as a sponsor of the show. Have you guys seen kind of the same type of results in terms of their durability?
Yeah, they sure do last. And in the trucks, we're up and down on your knees and crawling around, and they hold up. They are definitely worth their money.
That is great. And that's, I try to only have sponsors on the show that I can really get behind and that really provide value for my listeners. So I really do appreciate you taking a moment just to kind of give a quick testimonial on lacrosse. That means a lot. Thank you for doing that, Whitney.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Okay. So, well, traditionally, this is the part of the show where I talk about your supervised agricultural experience, but you've kind of already got into it, which is great. So, just to clarify, you running the Plymouth County Open Sheep Show, that was your SAE. Am I correct about that?
That was the big part of it, the major part of it. I did run about 10 to 12 U's there for a little bit, but okay. My major focus was running the show and doing the open show. Okay,
so I want to ask you about this. So when you're saying you're running this show, and you mentioned the county fair earlier as well, is this the sheep show at the county fair, or is this something separate?
This is actually it's on its own. It's a totally different thing. Like, we have our 4-H and FFA sheep show, and then when I was really young, we had an open show every Saturday. It was Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
And that the group of people that did it, they didn't think that it was working out, didn't have the numbers that they liked. So they decided to get rid of it. Well, then as the years went on and I started showing more competitively, I was like, we need more shows, like, for younger competitors and ones that aren't so intense. Like, get these younger kids involved, kids that wouldn't normally come out. And so that's where we're like, we could do this. We can have a show and we can make this work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, some years we had support, like the support from our fairgrounds, but they let us use the fairgrounds, they let us use the ring, but we were on our own. We kind of did our own show, put it on, found our judge, found all our own sponsors. Like, that was our deal.
Okay. And did you say this was going every Saturday?
It was the Saturday of the fair every year for the last 6 or 7 years.
Oh, okay. So this open sheep show, this was going once a year.
Once a year, yep.
Okay.
And how I got it started was I showed competitively, and we showed through the Heartland Youth Circuit. Okay. And there shows all over the state of Iowa every weekend.
I see. Okay.
So that's kind of where.
So and I'm just trying to get this straight in my mind. So my daughter shows sheep out here in Idaho where I'm at, but she shows at our county fair. So the Plymouth County Open Sheep Show, that was conducted the Saturday of the fair. Did the fair have another separate sheep show for people in 4-H and FFA in addition to what you were doing?
Yeah. Yep. They had their own show during the week, and then we had ours where we would bring kids. Some years we had people from Wisconsin, all the way from Wisconsin, come to Iowa to show. We had people from Minnesota that came down and they would show in.
That's interesting. Now, why was the timing such that you did it the Saturday of the fair? Was that so exhibitors at the fair whose lambs were ready for then, they wouldn't have to have a separate lamb to show during your show, or how did that timing work out?
A lot of it was just like when the fair could use, like when we could use the fairgrounds, and like because our fair was still going on, but it was also, so there was things for like that people coming from out of town and out of state, there was things for them to do too, because our fair was going on, but it was also to provide another show for the kids that were in 4-H and FFA whose sheep were already there.
Okay.
And it's one more show for that kid that only shows the county fair. Well, now you get to show another time.
Gotcha.
That they wouldn't have ever got to do that. And Saturday is always the busy day at our fair. Like towards the end of the week, but everybody comes out on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
So we got so many people to come and just watch to see what we were doing.
Okay, very interesting. Well, yeah, you're describing my daughter. She shows once a year at the county fair. If we had something like this going on here, she'd get more exposure, more time in the show ring. Very interesting. So what was your role then? I know it was your responsibility. You took it on. So how far in advance did you have to start coordinating things, taking entries, hiring the judge, doing all that type of stuff?
When I originally started, I was 8th grade. It was kind of my dad's deal. Like, I was kind of behind the scenes. I'd help in the ring. So I really only did the first year. The day of the show was kind of my role. But as I got into FFA and more involved in it, I started planning way back in December and January who I was going to get for a judge, where I was going to get sponsors for the show, and working with getting the approval from our fair board to have it every year. And that's so I started planning 8 months before we actually had the show. And I worked all the way up until working with local sponsors to get the show so we could have a good show and get prizes and everything for our exhibitors. And then once it came time for the show, I was everywhere. I took entries. I helped weigh in. Every once in a while, they got me on the microphone and announced. Not very often. I was in the ring, out of the ring. I was everywhere. I was there.
Okay. Now, I've always been curious about this. I'm out in Idaho, and when we have our county fair, we've got judges that are coming out of the Midwest. They're coming out of Texas. And I always wonder how they find judges from so far away. I understand why they find judges from so far away, but I always wonder how they do it. So when it comes to finding a judge, is there some sort of a website or a clearinghouse you can go to look through people's resumes and training and background, or how does that all work?
So when I would look for my judge, you would use my resources, I guess. I knew people, I showed in the industry, so I knew people, and I'd be like, oh, who would you recommend? Or I would go to these shows and there would be judges there, and I'd be like, I'm having this show on this day. Like, would you be willing to come up and judge for us? Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of finding, per se, the right judge for every year, because every year the sheep industry changes and you never know. But I tried to keep them pretty local just because it's a small show. We didn't really want to have to fly somebody in. Okay. So I was trying to keep them local, and I tried to get some of the younger kids. So a lot of kids come out of college and they do livestock judging, and that's where I got some of mine, was ones that hadn't been out of college very many years, and that's where they kind of got their start in judging shows.
Okay, got it. Okay, that is really interesting. So you're providing exhibitors another opportunity to show, another opportunity to develop those skills. Was there ribbons awarded? Was there a cash prize awarded, like a jackpot type show? I mean, how did that all work?
Yeah, it was a jackpot show. So there was money was given out. We had some really good sponsors that we did like a vinyl banner for the last couple of years. We've done vinyl banners. We had buckets, some years coolers, chairs. Our FFA chapter was really good about helping, and that was their contribution. Was they always did some really cool prizes for us.
That is great. Well, I bet trying to herd those cats, all that organization you had to do, and putting all that together, and and everything then it starts, and so everything's fluid. That has to have helped you in college, I would assume.
It sure has. Like creating a timeline, like getting stuff done and knowing when to do and when to ask for help, when like just when you need extra help. And that was one thing, like some years I struggled, like I need help like with the show. I can't be a one-man show. And so finding that balance, and then especially going into college and like knowing that you can lean on other people and you can go to professors for help, like it definitely did help.
Very cool. Well, speaking of college, I wanted to ask you about your major. So your major is dairy manufacturing. Now, I'm thinking back to when I took dairy science at a junior college in Modesto, California. It was my last semester, my third semester there at MJC. And my instructor, he was trying to talk basically the whole class into looking into this major of, back then we called it dairy industry. So a lot of people were going into dairy production, dairy science, to actually be milking cows and running the dairies. But he was saying, well, you guys should look over at dairy industry. There's a ton of jobs there working in creameries and things like that. Now, your major is dairy manufacturing. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
And where is that going to lead you?
So it's a lot like the your dairy industry program. I go in after the cows are milked, and you have to create a product with the milk. So I go in, and I worked in a couple of different plants and making cheese, cream, fluid milk. Actually, this summer I'm going to a plant to do fluid milk and learn how they do the bottling. And so that was kind of where I see myself. I just want to work in industry and create where the gap is. Kind of, a lot of people don't know. Like they know their milk comes from a cow, but how does it get from the cow to the table?
Sure.
They don't know that there's another whole part of that.
Okay. That is interesting. So you've been going off every summer and working in these different industrial, I guess, aspects of the dairy industry, or have those been internships, or how are you getting to do that?
Yeah, I've done 2 internships now. So between my freshman and sophomore year, I went back home and I worked at AgriPure in Hall, Iowa, which is about a half hour, 45 minutes from where I live. And I just worked as a production intern. So I would go out to where they brought the milk in, and I worked all the way how they pasteurize the milk to make it good for consumption. That was a cheese plant. So I learned how to make cheese all summer, and just working with the different people who work there and what they did on a daily basis. And I really learned a lot from how we can create a good quality product for our consumer.
Okay.
And then this past year with COVID, I actually went back to Hall, and I started in March actually, because when COVID started, we didn't come back after our spring break.
Okay.
And so I went back and worked at Hall. I actually worked as an operator for a while, and I was in receiving. So I unloaded milk trucks all night.
Oh, wow.
And then I went and worked in quality control for the last part for my internship. So I worked with micro wheel counts and how we get this product that we've made. How can we make it better and make sure that it's a safe product for everybody to have?
Okay. That is very interesting. So I want to ask you this as we kind of draw the interview to a close. But for students out there right now they like agriculture, they want to make a career out of it, and they're trying to figure out where to go and where to fit in. Tell everybody what it is about the industrial side, about the value adding and the making the final product side of agriculture that you enjoy.
For me, it's a thing. We have to feed America. And we have to feed the world. That's inevitable. Everybody has to eat. So it's where we can create something that everybody essentially needs, and what we can do to make it better, and just working with as a group and as a society and an industry altogether, how we can advocate for ourselves, because there's people who don't agree with what we do. So how to advocate that we are making a good product. And that's just kind of why I like what I do.
Very cool. Well, Whitney, this has been very interesting and fascinating. I really want to know where you take this after college and where you wind up going to work and what you wind up doing. To me, it's fascinating to see how that all gets done. And by the way, you've talked about cheese, you talked about liquid milk. What about ice cream? What about Blue Bunny? That's right there in your home state.
Yeah, I've definitely thought about going back home. I'm going to Kansas this summer to try and see if I like being away from home, but I always know that I have a home to come back to, and there's always an industry that I can come back home to.
That is awesome. Well, Whitney, good luck to you, and thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody, and thank you to Whitney Ten Napel for coming on the Off-Farm Income Podcast today and sharing that very, very interesting information. Well, everybody, we would love it if you would click that subscribe button down below and be a subscriber here on our YouTube channel and get all of our videos when they come out, and we'd love to connect with you on social media as well. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, all under the title Off-Farm Income. And everybody, until next time, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.